Now, I want to bring in our next guest who has extensive experience in the airline industry. A former president and CEO of CAE, a former chair of Air Canada, and former president and CEO of Bombardier, Robert Brown. Clearly, I think we're talking to the right person. We want some context on Mr. Rovinescu. What do you make of the fact, and what you know with the airline industry, that is, Air Canada and the industry as a whole faces this mammoth battle that he's picking now to retire?
I think, first of all, Calin Rovinescu has done an outstanding job. He came in a very difficult period. I was part of Air Canada Enterprises and made the appointment of Calin back in 2008, 2009. And the airline was clearly in difficulty, and he's done a great job bringing it back. And I think the most important thing here is that Air Canada has never been better prepared to face a crisis than they are right now. You know, we've in the past have been through SARS, we've been through 9/11. But as we went into the pandemic, the balance sheet was very strong, and it remains strong. There has been a good lineup of new product that's coming into the organization. And I think from a cultural point of view, there has been great support and relationship between the CEO and the employees. So all of that bodes well, I think, for the future.
Yeah, when I think about some of the commentary we've heard on the station today, when they take a look at this, the analysts say, well, this is clearly a progression of bringing up talent through and then grooming them for the top role. They're not worried about the change we're going to see at the top. Some suggesting the fact that perhaps Mr. Rovinescu taking a look at the situation saying this is going to be a long time to repair the airline and this industry from the damages of COVID-19. It's not going to be a 3-month fix, a 6-month fix. This is the long haul, so maybe step aside now. Does that make sense?
Well, I think, first of all, one of the other things that has happened is that Calin has groomed Mike Rousseau, who is an excellent candidate to take over and continue the work that he's done. So I think that's the leadership going forward and carrying on the plan that has been started, I think is extremely important. And, you know, as we go into this particular situation, you know, Canada is the second largest country in the world. We also are very dependent on exports. We have a huge relationship with the United States. And we have to find some way that we can keep the airline ready to roll and keep things moving inside Canada in terms of being able to move senior people around and have access to the United States. This is going to end at some point. And we have to make sure that we're ready to be able to continue into the future in a way that's going to support the Canadian economy.
Now, in that vein, of course, at the beginning of the pandemic, the Trudeau Liberals chose to put programs in place, sort of a one-size-fits-all. Here's a wage subsidy for all companies. Here's a loan facility for all companies. Of course, as we get deeper into this, a lot of voices now saying, okay, that time has passed. We need targeted aid. Is this an industry, to your mind, that needs targeted aid?
Well, I think that probably what the government did was right at the time. But, you know, we've advanced to a point now. We're not sure when this is going to end, but it is going to end, and we've got to get ready for it. And we have to be able to support the company. I think that Air Canada, of the top 20 airlines in the world, is the only one that has not had some intervention or support from the government. And these ad hoc programs, while they are necessary, in running a sophisticated organization like Air Canada, you know, and it has about 2% of the GDP of Canada, about $50 billion, and it's essential in terms of being able to keep the economy going. There has to be some better approach in terms of a way that you can structure support from them, as I said before, to make sure that they can keep their critical mass right now, but also think about how we come out of this in a way that we can be very proactive and positive going into the future. That has not been done yet.
I was going to say, I think one of the ideas that's been floated is that industries are saying we're not looking for a handout, but if we had some sort of loan facility at a very low cost of borrowing, because of course that LEAF program that was put into place, as far as I know, was not taken up in any substantial way by anybody. The borrowing costs were quite high. Is that sort of a program that needs a bit of tweaking if it's really going to help these large companies that it was intended to help?
Well, I think you have to be more specific in terms of the way that you target support. Air Canada, has been able to raise, I think, about $6 billion this year. They've got about $8.5 billion on their balance sheet, but they're burning through it. And you don't want to get into a situation that, causes some difficulty. And so I think that it's necessary for the government now to start thinking about the future so we can keep this airline that has bounced back over the last decade and positioned itself extremely well, not only domestically, but from an international basis, to make sure that we have to position the whole country and business and the economy in such a way that we can take advantage of the situation when this particular pandemic comes to an end.
I'd like to get your take, too, on what we heard from WestJet this week in terms of cutting back on their service to the Atlantic provinces. Obviously, this is a blow for Canadians who travel in and out of that area. My parents are from the Atlantic provinces. Before the pandemic, they were going down about once a year. How crucial is it that the federal government, who had a statement but didn't make any firm commitments, tries to rectify a situation like that? We make sure we can move Canadians from province to province to province.
I think it's absolutely essential. Look, what we're doing right now, working remotely from home, talking to each other, that's great, and I think it's done well. And I'm associated with Bell. I think Bell's done a fantastic job in keeping all of the systems going. But there has to be some face-to-face contact, particularly at senior levels. And I think about. There's quite a large number of health workers from Canada that go daily to work in the United States. We have commerce in vehicles, trucks that are going back and forth across borders. Surely we can come up with some innovative, safe way that we can move some people around in order to make sure that we are well positioned to deal with the economic side of the pandemic. At the same time, realizing that I know that governments have to take action to make sure that they protect people and keep everyone safe. But maybe there's a little bit more balance that can be found here in terms of how we deal with it.
Before I let you go, I did want to ask you, of knowing what you know about Calin Rovinescu, he has a couple more months in the job. He has not been quiet about making some of those suggestions to Ottawa. Do you expect him to take that argument to the federal government's right until the middle of February?
Well, I know Calin. I think that he'll be fighting hard for his company and for his employees and for his customers to the end. But you must recall he's also trained and worked with a very, very solid replacement, Mike Russo, who will be capable of carrying on the arguments and positions later on. This is not something that's going to be solved in a couple of months. It's something that's going to have to go on for a period of time. And that's why I think that Mike has got some runway in front of him, and he'll always have the advice of Calin to be able to help him as he moves forward. So I'd be positive in terms of how this is going to go, but you have to keep the dialogue up and come up with the ideas to help people realize that we can't just keep thinking about today. We've got to think about the future and how we're going to come out of this and make sure that we can grow the economy going forward, and at the same time keep people safe.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today and share your expertise with us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Robert Brown is a corporate director with BCE, which is ultimately the parent company of us here at Bell Media and at BNN through the Bell Media organization. He's a former, of course, airline industry chief executive.